everybody, it's Romania Black. So, we're on episode 16 of Death Note. And last episode, Light just said, bye Ryuk. Okay, we'll go with that. I do have some comments, though, before we start. As I'm recording this, episode 15 has come out on Patreon, episode 14 on YouTube. And I do want to say, the last several weeks, and this is not just with Death Note, it's with several series, Heaven Official's Blessing, Vinland Saga, Neon Genesis, several series that I'm watching are series that are kind of like Attack on Titan. They're very like, there's lots of surprises and twists in the plot and things, and so thus, things are really ripe with spoilers. And I feel like I haven't maybe as a creator been transparent enough with what I consider to be a spoiler. So I have gone on the community post on YouTube and I have gone on Patreon to make a post about what I consider to be spoilers. And that's obviously like things to do with plot, hints or clues of things to come. Whenever someone's like, pay attention to this or don't forget about that, that's a spoiler to me because it tells me that I need to note something, which means it's going to come up again, which means it's related to the plot, which means it's a spoiler. And the other thing is, like, when I do theories on here, I like to theorize. I am not one of those reactors that's like, I think that I'm not a light Yagami as far as reacting goes. I like to be proven wrong. I like when I make a prediction and it ends up being wrong because usually there's a cool twist with it. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And it's very surprising. So I'm not one of those type of people that want to be confirmed or deconfirmed to my theories. So please don't. Because I've had several comments. It's not just one person. I've had people on Patreon and YouTube both that were like talking about how Elle in episode 14 with Light was like, oh, well, he says he's Light's friend, but he's not really his friend. And I'm like, let me theorize, please. So, for the last time, I feel like I just beat a dead horse when I'm like, stop spoiling. And so, I'm not going to do that anymore. I've made a community post. I've made a Patreon post. I've been transparent. So now, I have my own Death Note. And so, it's actually, I wrote some Ace of the Diamond information in it from when I went to watch an MLB game. But I've saved a little section in the back. And so now I'm at the point where if I see someone being spoilery, or if someone tells me on Patreon or YouTube, hey, watch out for this person, they're trying to spoil you in the comments, I'm going to put your name in the comment note, and I'm not going to respond to you. So, or read your comments. So I don't want to do that, but I don't know what else to do at this point. It's like, I don't want to beat myself over the head worrying about it, and I just want to move on and be able to talk with the people that aren't trying to spoil me and enjoy the conversations we have. Because like I said in the post, I don't want to get to the point where I can't answer comments because it's kind of the thing about this channel I love most. I'm not really doing this out for money. Y'all support me on Patreon and I'm eternally grateful, but I don't do sponsorships or anything. I'm just doing this for fun to talk about anime and manga and Donmai. So I'd rather have 5,000 people that are awesome and want to talk about a show genuinely than to have 5 million that want to try, troll, and spoil, if I'm being honest. So that's just me, but that's, I don't want to rant anymore, but I was at my wit's end. I'm like, I'm just going to take this notebook and I don't want to have to do it, but I guess I'll have to start if people just can't, it's out there now. So there you go. But just end of rant. I also am taking an antibiotic and found out today I'm allergic to it. So there's like a rash on the side of my face that's come up from me being allergic to this antibiotic. And I'm like, today's the day. It's like, to watch Death Note. Death Note will make things better, right? Maybe. I'm really excited for episode 16, if I'm honest. I really am. Episode 15 ended on such a crazy note that I'm like, oh my god. So I do have like 4 comments on here before we start. Bernard Black talked about how in episode 13, thank you Bernard for clarifying this, that the way that they do the translation in the episode, it was kind of weird in episode 13. They noted the rule is if you misspell a name 4 times, the person is exempt from the Death Note, not that the Death Note becomes obsolete. And I'm like, that makes much more sense. I like that. So basically, if you intend to put a person's name down and you misspell it 4 times, because you have to have a name and a face. So if the Death Note knows you're thinking of someone, but you misspell their name 4 times, then they're no longer immune. That could be interesting in the future, because what if Elle has a really ridiculous name that's hard to spell, and Light tries to write it down and just doesn't get it right 4 times, and then Elle's immune? Who knows, right? I don't know, because Light doesn't have the eyes. Jeannie Jia noted that Misa's contacts when she was meeting with Light in one of the episodes were blue instead of brown. I was like, oh, so that could tie to the fact that she was trying to avert suspicion on herself, that she keeps changing contacts and keeps changing her hairstyle and stuff, so you can't pin her down. And I like that. It shows that Misa was taking a little bit of consideration and time into thinking about these things when she went to meet Light. Light just didn't fully notice it. He kind of noticed it, but not fully. And then Robin Hood Productions noted that Misa is clinging to this cultish behavior. It makes sense because, and I like the way that you phrase this, Robin Hood, that in her world, she's living in a world after trauma. And that, especially after this last episode, in episode 15, I do feel bad for Misa. Yeah, she's killed people, which is bad, but she has been like suffering from like losing her parents, them dying in front of her, to being assaulted by that guy and nearly killed, to having, people threaten her. And even in episode 15, it's apparent that she is kind of a victim of trauma, because even when she's on the quad, there's people like, I just want to touch her. And I'm like, this girl's like had been sexually assaulted, and that's the last thing she wants to hear, is that you can't respect her boundaries or her space. Like, just because she's a celebrity doesn't mean you can get up in her business and touch her. I'm like, ugh. And then we see how she's treated in the torture scene, and that's even worse. So I feel bad for her. I do. I feel bad for Misa, because she's clearly stuck in this world after trauma, as Robin Hood Productions put it. And her clinging to this cultish behavior kind of makes a lot of sense. And her clinging to Light kind of makes a lot of sense, because to her, he's Kira and kind of her salvation. So if she's gave up the death note, I'm really wondering how that's going to work or what's going to happen. So we shall see. But then finally, when Elle said in episode 15, I'm jealous to Misa, that's the Japanese translation. In English, it's a little bit different. I just watched the English dub of the episode. But when he said I'm jealous to Misa, I thought that was funny, because the VA for Jealous, the character in this show, plays Elle in the live action. So I thought that was a fun little coincidence. But yeah, the English dub of this episode's great. It's wonderful. Again, Light in the English dub, he's so smarmy, and the way he just gets so aggravated. Brad Swell does a great job of playing aggravated Light. It's really great. And even Elle's voice actor in the English dub, he gets kind of like quirky in this last episode, and it was interesting. But man, there was only one thing in the English dub I want to make note. When Light kisses Misa in the English dub, there's like an added line by Ryuk in the background that's like, oh wow. And it was really kind of cringy. It was kind of weird. I was like, that wasn't in the Japanese, or at least I didn't hear it. I don't know why it was added at the last minute. I guess they didn't want it to be silent, but I was like, we get that it's a shocking moment, so I don't know why it was there. It was kind of weird, but I don't know. But anyway, that was under 8 minutes. We're doing good. So yeah, that's all I had for the notes for episode 16, but I'm really excited to see what happens in this episode, so we shall see. But in any case, we are going to start this episode and see what happens with our crew, and we're going to start this here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. We are not quite halfway through this series, and already Light has relinquished the Death Note. What? What? So, okay. Like I said before starting this, I'm going to posit a lot of theories in this discussion. Please do not confirm or deconfirm them. Let me wallow in my ignorance until I find out if they're true or not, because that's what this episode, I think, is designed to do. It wants you to pause it to be like, what the hell is going on and what is Light going to do? Because I'm like, I am convinced, I don't think that Light is going to remain in the dark for the rest of this series and be unknowledgeable about the Death Note. I don't foresee that happening. I don't see how that could be possible. I'm like, how are we going to go from here if Light isn't the one with the Death Note? I don't see how that's possible. So I'm going to posit lots of theories in this episode. Obviously, Light has realized that Elle was about to win. Yeah, and Light said in the last episode that we're just starting. So Light is playing the long game. And he's like, okay, fine. I think Light realized he was at the edge of the cliff and Elle was about to push him off, and he was like, no, I'm not done yet. We're not done with this yet. So oh my God. So I'm going to put a lot of theories up here. So we just need to just go through some theories, okay? So we're just going to do theories concerning Light, Misa, and Kira. Because at the end of the day, the entire point was that Rim took... I really thought that... I don't know what I thought. I thought that somehow they were going to try to pin Kira being Elle. And that's not what we're going to right now, which is... But, I mean, who knows? But, so, we have to keep a few things in mind, I think, going into this episode. I think there's a couple things this episode does not tell us and remind us about, that in the midst of all this chaos and confusion, it can be very easy to forget. Kat, I'm going to put like point or note number 1 up here, is that Rim charged Light to save Misa. She said she would kill Light if he didn't save her and get her out of there. So that is point number 1. That's everything Light is doing at this point is to get Misa out of there and to get her safe so that Rim doesn't kill him. That's case in point. That's number 1. And Rim has gone off. Rim has gone off with the Death Note, but she can still see Light. She can still watch him from afar, right? Now, Light did make the observation that once you see a Shinigami from another Death Note, that you still remember them even after the person has relinquished that Death Note again. So that's... But if Light relinquished the Death Note that Ryuk had, then he can't see her anymore. So that's interesting. Okay. So that's interesting. But Light did make that observation. So I'm pinning that in the back of my brain, that Shinigami can still be seen even if other people give up the Death Note. So that's still a thing. Point number 2 to be brought up as well is the fact that Elle and the task force do not know how Kira's powers work. They don't know. That's the biggest frustration out of all of this, is that they don't know how the powers work. So Light suggesting that, oh, I wasn't conscious when I was Kira, brings up a whole new avenue in all this, that Elle's like, now wait a minute, that's never been brought up in all this. And the other guys are like, well, maybe it could be. And then Elle's like, damn it, because all of this, Elle is so good at intuition and deduction that he knows that's not the case, but he's like, well, I can't prove it. I don't have any concrete evidence, right? So, oh my God, this episode, what a trip. What a trip. So we need to go through this, right? And just go through this. So we get this deep and dark, scary Blair Witch Project looking woods where they're all meeting up at in the misty woods. And he relinquishes the Death Note back to Rim and says, I relinquish ownership of this notebook. And she's like, good. And she says, take care of Misa. And he's like, yep, planning on it. And she like holds him to it. She has that look on her face like, yeah. And poor Misa, can we talk about her? Because there's some things with Misa that I'm like, oh my God. So there's several players in all of this. We have Misa is one. All right, we have Misa, and she's going to be pink. We have Elle, who's losing his shit, being like, what is going on? We have Light, who's going to be back over here in the red. And then dear, sweet Daddy Yagami. Chief Yagami is concerning me probably the most out of all of them. I don't like where this is headed. I don't like this. So, okay. There's a third point that I want to bring up, and I should not have made this line now. So there's a third point that Rim brought up that I think is noteworthy in this episode. And point number 3 that Rim brought up is that emotions remain even after the Death Note memories leave. I think it's important to note that what Misa and Light experience in this episode is not like a whole amnesia. It's not like they've forgotten months out of their lives and they no longer can remember anything that's happened to them in the last year. No, or I guess it's been like 6 months since Light said the Death Note. No, I don't think that's it at all. It's not that they've forgotten what has been going on in their life day to day. Like Misa still remembers. She remembers that Light's her boyfriend. So she still considers Light her boyfriend. But she doesn't remember anything involving the Death Note that they did together. So she remembers probably going to his house. She remembers seeing him on the quad. She remembers talking to him. But everything about the Death Note is gone. And it's funny to note that Light in all of this never brings Misa up. That's going to be interesting. I don't feel like Light, in the state that he is in, is going to rescue Misa. I think that his actions that he's taken are going to be what sets her free. Now, Elle's going to be like, what the fudge do I do? And so let's go through this. But I feel genuinely bad for Misa for several reasons in this. One reason that I feel really bad for Misa is that having woken up and realized that she's bound and blindfolded, she thinks that she's been kidnapped by a stalker. Like, the fact that that's where her mind instantly goes is terrifying, and thinks that they're playing a game, and says, you've gone further than anybody before. So in that moment, Misa forgets everything about the Death Note. It is implied that she has been stalked and messed with before. How this girl has been able to function on a day-to-day basis is beyond me, because I can't imagine dealing with like people stalking you all the time and having that worry all the time. Like, that's terrifying. And she doesn't scream or freak out necessarily, but she's just like, okay, you can let me go now. I promise I'll give you a kiss. I'll do whatever you want. That's terrifying. And the fact that she just is doing it to save herself. She thinks she's gonna die. It's like, oh my God. And Elle doesn't understand what the hell is going on. He's like, why is she suddenly changing her tune? So Elle is confused. And his deductions are suddenly being overturned. Which is, God, Light. And Light the whole time is like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to destroy Elle from within. I'm going to destroy this case. It's gotten too close. The case has gotten too close to being solved. But no, I'm not going to give up. Instead, I'm going to because in the last episode, Elle made a bold move. Elle made a sneak attack. He made a bold move and was like, if I don't do this, then we won't catch Kira. And it paid off. He got so close. Again, Elle has been consistently so close. This is probably the first episode where Elle has been off the mark because he has no clue how Light has changed the game. And Light was like, no, if you're going to be bold, Elle, I'm going to be bold. And I'm going to make a big, bold move. And we're going to go with it. And so I can't believe he got rid of Ryuk. Like, he just forgot. But I have theories. He could get the notebook back. Ryuk could give the notebook back to him. Maybe. I don't know. I refuse. I'm like, is the rest of this series going to be Light trying to prove that he's not Kira when he's been Kira the entire time? Okay. So let's make some notes of what literally happens in this episode and go from there and break it down, because he's like, just as I thought, as long as I have Ryuk's notebook, even if I relinquish Rim's notebook, my memory of Rim doesn't disappear. But Rim, all these troubles are happening to me because you brought another notebook into the human world. And Ryuk's like, we're really going to do this? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I never thought the notebook I gave you would end up buried in the ground. So, point one is that Light buries the notebook in the woods. Okay. We don't know. Here's point 2, is that Rim, we don't know what her next move will be. Because here's the thing. That whole thing about relinquishing the notebook and Light saying he could still see Rim even after relinquishing her notebook. So is it possible that he'll still be able to see Rim even after Ryuk is gone? Is that possible since he touched it? He touched a notebook that wasn't his own. So Rim may be out of sight for now, but he may have told Rim to come find him once he gets out of prison. Maybe. I don't know. We don't know yet, right? So, but we just know Rim, we don't know what her next move is going to be. We don't know what Ryuk's next move is going to be, but Light buried the notebook in the woods. And that's going to tie down to here to if they searched Light's house, there is no notebook. There is no trace of the death note. Now, we do know that Light has pieces of the death note in his wallet. So it could be that Light, because really, here's the thing. Light just needs to get rid of L. That's all he has to do to solve the whole Kira thing. He needs to get rid of L. And so he has the piece of the death note in his wallet. So all he has to do is touch that piece of the death note and he'll see Ryuk again. He'll see Ryuk again even if he doesn't have the notebook, right? As long as he has that little piece of paper and touches it, then he'll be able to use the death note again and he'll be able to see Ryuk again, even after he's given it up, right? Or was it a rule that once the notebook paper was torn out, it wouldn't count? I don't know. I don't think the notebook paper becomes just a standard piece of paper once you relinquish it. Don't confirm that with me or not. Let me find out in the next episode if something else happens. But the piece of the notebook, his death note, is still in his wallet. So I am aware of that. Now, whether or not it loses effect after he's relinquished the notebook, or if he touches it again, it goes back again, I don't know. But if they searched Light's house, there's no notebook. We're going to pin that because that's important. So yeah, oh my gosh, this episode, Light, you're just playing like 4D chess at this point. He's like, I'm just hiding it there in the ground. I won't get rid of it until the next time I say get rid of it. When I say that, regardless of the context, I assume it means I want to get rid of the notebook. And he's like, got it. And Ryuk's like, I really don't want to leave, but okay, sure. And so Misa points out that what they are doing something illegal to her. So here's the problem. They took her in without telling the public. So she gets out and notifies the public that these people had her under, like, had her tortured and stuff. Then that could cause a big uproar. So they need to kind of prove that she is the second Kira, or they're like up shit's creek without a paddle. So this is just making it all the more problematic. And Elle's just like, this is not going at all the way that I planned. They're like, ever since she passed out and regained consciousness. And I'm glad that at least Matsuda and them are like, why is she acting dumb? Like, they're kind of on the same page that Elle is. They're like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? How could she act dumb like this? And she's like, could you at least take off my blindfold? Because I really want to see what you look like. And at this point, Elle's like, if she was second Kira, then that seems like too obvious of a move just to see his face to kill him. So he's like, you've been playing everything really close to the vest until now. Why are you stopping? What's the deal? So, oh my God. And he's like, give Mr. Mogi a call. He's like, I want to try to figure out what's going on. And so he calls the Mogi guy and he says, when you apprehended her, you told her that she was a suspect, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, that's what you told me to say. And I covered her eyes and mouth from behind and said, you're under arrest on suspicion of being the second Kira. And they all have the face masks and stuff on so she can't see their faces. She didn't seem to struggle even when I put handcuffs now. It seems like she's given up. And now it's going from her giving up to her desperately trying to get out of the situation. Like, oh my God. And she's like, I'll give you an autograph or shake your hand or give you a kiss. It's like, oh my God. She's acting completely opposite she was before. She's like, I won't run away. He's like, we'd made so much progress. Why is she suddenly talking about a stalker? Like, everything's just suddenly not right. And so she's like, what investigation? He's like, do you know why you're tied up? And she's like, why? And she doesn't seem to know anymore. And Matsuda gets mad at that because Matsuda's like, quit playing dumb. Like, what's going on? And that gets her upset. And I love that she's like, the whole thing about her using the bathroom, that part where it makes it sound like somebody had kidnapped her before or had made her pee on herself before and enjoyed it. And she's like, if that's what you like. And Elle's like, I'm a pervert. What? Like, it's just Elle's befuddled. Just like we all are. Elle's like, I don't understand. He's like, let's talk about what happened before you went to sleep. He's like, do you know like Yagami? Why did you approach him? And she's like, and she says, there's no way I wouldn't know my own boyfriend. And he's like, why is she talking so openly about this? And speak of the devil, as soon as she starts talking so openly about it and nonchalantly about, and Matsuda's like, what's going on? Like, they're all so confused because they don't know how the Death Note works, that they don't know why she's acting so differently. And that's when Light calls and says he's going to turn himself in. Like, it's all too coincidental, right? It's all too coincidental. And I think that's what Elle knows. Elle's like, this is all too much of a coincidence. And Chief Yagami, bless his heart, he's like, why is my son coming here? I feel bad for him in this episode. And when Matsuda opens the door, he's like, come on in. Welcome to the madness. Welcome to this insanity that we're witnessing. So Light turns himself in. And Elle's like, what is he going to say? But Light, with his black shirt on underneath, the black versus the white, he says, I told you over the phone. And that he told him over the phone. So Elle's like, oh, we're going to open up this can of worms. So Light turns himself in as maybe being Kira. I think I might be Kira. I'm like, at first I'm like, how do you think you might be Kira? But I think Elle is finding that it's all too coincidental. Like, it's so coincidental that we have this woman who we clearly thought was second Kira, had it almost pinpointed, and suddenly she has amnesia and can't remember anything about Kira or the second Kira. And it just so happens that, like, within 30 minutes of this happening, Light shows up and is like, what if Kira's powers, the people that are Kira don't know that they're Kira? And it's like, that's too coincidental. I feel like Elle is like, something's up. Why is this coming out now? But him saying I might be Kira, Chief Yagami is just horrified. Like, he's been trying this whole time to not let this happen. And he's like, what are you talking about? What's wrong? Tell me. And then Elle, he's like, there's no proof that Light Yagami is Kira. But for him to say that he may be Kira, he's like, it's all an act. Yeah, Elle knows. He believes that Light is acting. And meanwhile, Light is acting. It's just like, it's crazy because Elle has been onto him this whole time. It's crazy. He's like, Elle is acting as if he doesn't know how Kira works. Okay? And poor Chief Yagami is horrified at his son's confession. Because Chief Yagami has tried this entire time, this entire series, to get his son's name cleared. And now his son has admitted that he could be Kira. And that's the last thing he wanted to hear. He's like, but it's not that you might be Kira, but that you are Kira. what are you planning? Like, he knows something's up. And Light is giving the performance of a millennium. He's giving the performance of a lifetime. Like, that sincere look. He's like, well, Dad, if Ryuzaki is L, it's like, oh my God. I want to... Then he unquestionably is the best detective in the world. I'm like, you're so full of shit. I'm like, Light, you are acting. You are acting so hard. Like, give this man an Oscar already. Because that just that sincere look, he's like, he's the best detective in the world. It's such a different look than when he has at the end of the episode, whenever the notebook is actually gone. We'll get to that. If L's decided I'm Kira, I must be. I'm like, that doesn't seem like you at all, Light. Like, him just conceding L is better than him. And he's like, what are you talking about, Light? He's like, where's your pride? And he's like, the people Ray Pinbar, the FBI agent in Japan, who he doesn't say her name, was investigating before he died was me. The people that went to Ioma on May 22nd was him. The person the alleged second Kira Misa was with was him. Yep, it's all me. If I were in L's place, even I would say I'm Kira, which he has. So at first, it seems like Light at first is trying to do reverse psychology, kind of, where he's saying that I am Kira. He's basically trying to use everything they've pinned together. He's trying to just reverse psychology everything they've been leading up to. So they've basically done all these steps to prove that he's Kira. And he's like, yeah, that's true. I guess I am. And I thought that by doing so, it would lead to an investigation to prove he's not. I thought Chief Yagami was going to be like, okay, well, then let's go search your house again. But they've already done that. That's the thing. They've already had the surveillance cameras. They've already done that. So they can't pin it on him because they don't think that there's any evidence there. I thought maybe they were going to go to his house and research it and realize there's no death note or anything there. But they don't even know what the death note is. So there'd be no point. I think that we're going to get back to this notebook buried in the woods. We're going to get back to it. Don't worry. When it comes full circle at the end, I may be Kira and might not know it. And Chief Yagami is just horrified because he's like, that doesn't clear you, even though you didn't know if you're him, you're him. And so, oh my God. So there is this idea planted there. I'm going to put it under Light's thing because it's not really part of the theory, but he plants the seed. He plants the seed that Kira is unaware of their actions. But that's such bullshit though, because, and I'm sure Ella's thinking that right now, because I'm like, Kira and second Kira recorded themselves talking on tape and sent it to various TV stations and killed people. So how are they not aware that they sat down, set up a microphone, set up the tape cassette, recorded themselves, edited it, put it in an envelope and sent it off? How are they unaware of that? It's suggesting they were in a trance or possessed or in a dreamlike state during all of that happening. Elle doesn't seem to buy that. He's like, that's not right. But there's so much confusion that he can't quite articulate how that couldn't be true. But I'm like, the whole saying of I may be Kira and might not know it, that's such baloney. Like, everything that's happened up until now would prove otherwise. And Elle's like, I see you're not conscious of it, huh? He's like, I'm not sure of anything anymore. I'm like, oh my God, Light. Even if I have no memory, there could be another me who's killing people as I sleep. No! And then Elle's like, I'm going to disprove that right now and say no, because we've watched you sleep. He's like, that'd be impossible. We've had cameras and watched you sleep. And he's like, what do you mean, Ryuzaki? Light is so devious in these moments because he's lying so hard. And Elle's like, because there was a time we had cameras in your room. He's like, what cameras? I'm like, I can't. He's like, we had them there for 5 straight days. And he's like, cameras? I'm like, oh my God. He's like, you slept normally at night. You didn't kill people in your sleep. No. Criminals who were broadcast that you didn't know about were dying. So that was, at that point, they're like, but I decided that you wouldn't give yourself away on camera. So he's like, I think Elle had determined that he thought Kira could predict the times of deaths. So it was possible he set these deaths up to happen outside of that time frame, but you can't confirm it, right? It's just a theory. And then there is a moment there where Light kind of goes, won't give myself away, huh? Where there's a little moment where the real Light like peeks through in that tiny moment where he's like, He's like, that may be true. Well, up to a certain point, I believe that. And so then we get into the meat of this, where he's like, I believe some major criminals should die. So I think anyone who has such thoughts could become Kira. Yeah, so he suggests, which is not wrong. That's the thing. He says that anyone could become Kira if they share that sense of justice. He's planting the idea that anybody could be Kira if they have that same sense of justice. And Matsuda backs him up. He's like, well, yeah, I do think that some major criminals should die, but the actual act of killing them, he's like, that's different than thinking that. He's like, Light, I believe the same thing. He says, I've thought it would be better that quite a few people were dead. But even so, we can't really kill people, right? Besides, criminals who are dying while you had no knowledge of them. The surveillance cameras proved that. And then I like that Aizawa's like, no, we were short of investigators then. We only watched him when he was at home. He could have killed people outside of his house. I like that Aizawa has not given up. Aizawa's like, no, I'm still suspicious. There's still a chance. He's like, this doesn't rule Light out, even though Matsuda. But at that point, I'm wondering, again, a possibility of this. I don't know. Because there's a part of me that thinks, there is a part of me that somehow thinks at some point in this series, Elle is going to get the Death Note. I don't know why. It just seems like a twist that could happen. I don't know why I think that. But it doesn't make sense that Elle would get the Death Note. One, because then Elle would know how the whole process works. But he couldn't, I guess it wouldn't matter because he couldn't pin it on Light anyway. Light and Misa would have no memory of it. So I don't know, unless there's a rule in the Death Note that if you get the Death Note back, all your memories come back. We've not seen that yet. Okay. I don't know, but it just seems like this is setting up something to happen. The idea that Light says anyone that has that same sense of justice that Light did could become Kira. I feel like that's setting up for something similar to happen. We just don't know it yet. But I don't know. I'm going to tuck that away. There might have been a way for him to kill while he wasn't at home. And Light's like, yep. And so Elle's like, is this all part of your plan, Light Yagami? I love Elle in this. He's like, if we restrain you for a long period like Amane, then, and criminals continue to die, is Light Yagami no longer Kira at that point? So I love that as he's holding the cup of coffee, I love the effect of him talking through the cup of coffee, like him internally monologuing and thinking to himself, and it's him and his reflection talking. I love that visual. That's so good. Oh my God, I want to get a picture of it real quick. That's such a good visual. Oh, he's like, is that what you're aiming for? Because yeah, that would, he thinks that if Kira kills while we detain Light, then that would mean he is not Kira. He's like, is that what your goal is? Is your goal to be that once we contain you for a long period of time where you can't possibly have gone and done these crimes and things happen, that will prove you're not Kira and you're off the hook? Is that what it is? And I think that's part of it. I think that that's part of it, but I don't think that's the full, I don't know. I don't think that's the full thing. But Elle's like, what do? I can't let him go. He's like, I don't like where this is going. I like that Elle's like, I have a bad feeling about this. I don't like where this is headed, but what choice do we have right now? He's like, you're turning yourself in. Fine. It's like, fine. Light Yagami will restrain and placed under confinement. And he doesn't look happy about it. Elle's just like, I don't like this. I don't want to do it, but whatever. I guess we will. We don't have a choice. And Chief Yagami he's not happy. He's like, if we're doing this, we have to do it now. You will not be allowed to leave my sight before then. It's like, this is crazy. There's no way my son's Kira. That is the hardest part about this whole show, is that this entire series, Chief Yagami has been convinced his son is not Kira, and he is. And so this entire time, it's so sad, but he's still convinced his son is not Kira. Oh my God. And there's this thought that if anything happens to you, I'll execute Kira. That's what Light brought up way back at the beginning of this series. And it's so cryptic. And so now I'm like, Chief Yagami, I'm worried about him stressing himself out and hurting himself. And so we'll tie back to that. I want to wait till the end of this episode, but we'll tie back to it. He's like, my son wouldn't. And he's like, it's fine, Dad. But the thing is, his son would. That's the sad part. There's no way I'll be able to pursue Kira if I suspect myself. God, the acting. He's like, in exchange for Yuzaki, until you decide that I'm not Kira, or you agree that I'm not Kira, don't let me go no matter what I say or what condition I'm in. So, Light, he makes Elle promise to not let him go until he is clear. No matter what I say, no matter what I do. So don't let me go, unless you are for certain that I'm not Kira. It's like, oh, he may never let you go. I want to make a note right here. We'll touch back to it, that Chief Yagami, if something happens, Light will execute Kira. I'm going to make a little box around that. Going to make a note of it. Oh my God. So yeah. And so he's like, understood. He's like, Mr. Yagami, are you able to come up with an excuse for Light's absence in your family? He's like, on second thought, actually just do it. I'm not asking you if. And he's like, well, I'm not sure I can suddenly, but why does my son have to be thrown in prison? And he's like, you're being stubborn, Dad. I can't be satisfied unless I do this. I'm like, Light, you're making your dad suffer so much, because he comes to the conclusion, Chief Yagami does, that he is emotionally compromised. And to be honest, he's been emotionally compromised for most of this series, as far as this case has been involved. He's just been really in control of it, and now he's not, because he can't bear the thought of his son being a mass murderer, which he is. And that's the problem. And he's like, are you serious, Light? He's like, by taking away my freedom, I'll be able to defeat the fear of Kira that lies within me. What bullshit! Oh my God, that's just Light. So he says, my freedom is linked to my fear that I am Kira. And there is a little bit of truth to that. I play devil's advocate that the beginning of this series, when Light first found the Death Note, that freedom of being able to write any name within the Death Note, it gave him this sense of freedom, but he also had this sense of fear when he first killed those two guys. It's like, oh my God, I'm a murderer. But the Death Note was so enticing that he was like, it was kind of like Bilbo Baggins when he has the ring. He's like, why shouldn't I use it? It's mine. Why shouldn't I use it? And gets possessed by it. That's kind of how Light's become with the Death Note. It just really got out of hand. And so he's like, until I can, by taking away that freedom of having it, I can stop that fear that I'm Kira. And that's essentially what he does. He has Ryuk destroy the Death Note so that he can't remember it. We're going to talk about it. So he's taken into custody. He's got the earphones and the blindfold on. And Aizawa and Matsuda, they don't look happy to take him away, but they don't have any choice. So, and Chief Yagami, that look, when watching his son get taken away. And L's like, I'm kind of not happy with any of this. He's like, what is going on? And then, God, this episode's in such darkness. So, the time and condition of death can be changed, but once the victim's name has been written, the individual's death can never be avoided. So, if your name's in the death note, it can never be avoided. It's going to happen, but the time and condition can only be changed. Cryptic. Cryptic indeed. Oh. And then the other condition, the other rule that we're given is if you lose the death note or have it stolen, you will lose its ownership until you retrieve it within 490 days. So, okay. So if you lose it or have it stolen, you will lose ownership unless you retrieve it within 490 days, which is like over a year. So you got like a year. You got like a year and a quarter to find that death note. Otherwise, you still have its ownership. So I guess unless Light officially gives up the death note or orders it to be taken away, you can still get it back. As long as it's within a year. So maybe Light is planning to get the death note back at some time. Maybe within 490 days. I'm going to put this down here. So within 490 days, could Light get the death note back? Maybe. It's a possibility. We're just going to throw it out there. Could happen. Could happen. But yeah, so Light's in confinement. Misa's in confinement. It's just like the screen. I'm waiting for L to be in the fourth screen being in confinement. I'm waiting for it, right? Because you've got these three people. I'm waiting for like L to be in confinement, honestly. The way this series is going, it's bonkers. But he's like, okay, I'm watching these two who... And L at this point is like, I know they're Kira and second Kira. I know they are. But this is just throwing a giant wrench into the whole system. And then Chief Yagami asked to be put into confinement as well. And they're like, why? He's like, we're holding my son as suspect. And at this point, I shouldn't be here. He's like, regardless of whether we should investigate him, when we were talking about confining him, my personal feelings got in the way. He's like, that's true. Personal feelings shouldn't be involved. So yeah, so maybe L's whole thing about being a friend was a lie. Maybe y'all were right. And it was a lie, but still, he says personal feelings should not be involved because that will lead to a mess up. L is like, I know that, because so far of the deaths there, personal feelings have been involved. When Ray died, he only went along with Light because his fiance was threatened. Naomi let her personal feelings about her job and her husband or her fiance get in the way and she died. Utsui, he died because his personal feelings and his sense of justice got in the way and it led him to not think about the situation and just rush in. So L knows that if you are not in control of your emotions, you will make a mistake. And so he asks to be confined himself. Chief Yagami does. And this whole thing here, where he says like what he suspects he would do, he's like, if my son really is Kira, then I don't know what kind of actions I may take. And he's like, I can imagine that you would. You'd kill your son and then yourself. Oh. L suspects that he would kill Light and then himself. Which is kind of the opposite of what Light pointed out in that dinner scene. He's like, oh, if something were to happen, if you died, then I would kill Kira. Not kill himself, but he'd kill Kira. Oh my God. And so I don't know, it looks like he's eating meat, like salami, like thin slices of salami or beef over the top of cantaloupe, which what's odd about that is not sweet at all. That's interesting because L has established that he thinks best when he eats something sweet. If you've ever had cantaloupe, it's not the sweetest fruit. It's really not. And the meat on top of it is not sweet either. So why is he eating that? That's very odd. I'm going to make a note of that he's eating an odd food choice. Maybe he's thinking, well, everything else is topsy-turvy. Why not I be as well? Oh, Chief Yagami. But yeah, he's like, no. He's like, I'd imagine that would happen. I agree, we shouldn't have you here. And he's like, he requests to go in confinement. And they're like, really? He's like, I'm calm now, but I don't know what I'll do in my feelings for my son. He's like, I thought you might say something like that, so I've already had Watari set it up. However, even though you'll be under confinement, please keep your cell phone on as usual. Maintain regular contact with your family and people from the outside. We won't tell Light about this. And if Light wants to talk to you, then we'll have him talk to you as if you're inside HQ. And we'll continue to give you updates as we go. So it'll be like you're still in the investigation. You're going to get updates, but you're going to be in confinement so you don't try anything crazy. Is that okay? And he says he's indebted to him. So, at this point, I think it is important to note that he does not know that his dad was in confinement. Light does not know this. Light may suspect it. If he does, we're not sure. But he does not know his dad's in confinement. Oh my God. So 3 days have passed, and nothing really has been released. Chief Yagami is looking worse for wear, and they all note it. There's now Chief Yagami, Light, and Misa. Again, that fourth screen is still open in the darkness. And so, like, and I was like, this has gotten crazy. And I'm with Matsuda. I feel sorry for the chief. And Elle's just like, what the hell? What is happening? And so, of course, Light asks if there's been any new criminals targeted by Kira. And he's like, quit trying to be crazy. He's like, quite a few criminals have been broadcast, but no one's died. And then Light just acting. Light being like, well, no one's been killed? Really? So that could mean that maybe I am Kira. I'm like, oh, you're such you know you're Kira. I'm like, Light. What a bastard. He knows he is. And Ryuk's like, I want to eat an apple so bad. And then Elle's like, what is going on? He's like, I thought the murders would continue even with him confined, because that would suspect if the murders continued, that would clear Light's name. But they haven't happened yet, right? So he's like, why haven't they? He's like, but in reality, they've completely stopped. It would seem like Yagami wanted to be confined, but that would mean that Yagami's Kira. So the question is whether he was conscious of being Kira. I love that visual of Elle looking in the prison at Light being like, was he conscious of being Kira or not? But the obvious answer is that he was. So, oh my God, it's so frustrating. If he is Kira, does he think he can get away by saying he wasn't conscious of what he was doing? Yeah, it's like pleading insanity. It's not like Yagami. No, it's not like Kira. Oh my God, I love that look. That look, oh my God, yeah. So he's saying that it's like pleading insanity to get out of the case. He says that's not like, he says Light at first, but then he says, no, that's not like Kira. So again, don't let your emotions get in the way, Elle. But yeah, so he's like, that's not, why would, Kira's been so egotistical, and on top of his game, why would he plead insanity and not knowing what he was doing? He's almost taken pleasure in knowing that he's killed these criminals in the past. Why would he suddenly not want to admit that he knew anything about it? And so that's what's throwing Elle off. He's like, this doesn't make sense. And he can't quite figure out what Light's game is yet. So then the 5th day happens, and Ryuk is about to have his withdrawal symptoms from apples, and he's going crazy. He's like, I just have to get through it, even if there's nothing to do. And then Misa's still on about Mr. Stalker. And poor Chief Yagami. He looks worse for wear. And they're like, yeah, Chief Yagami looks worse than Light or Mane. It's been 5 days since his son's been in prison. Yeah, because the longer that Light is imprisoned, the more he is being suspected of being Kira, and the more worried Chief Yagami is being. Not a single criminal has been broadcast has died. I'm like, on the one hand, I don't know what Light's endgame is. Because this is the confusing part of it all. The confusing part of it all that makes me think that he wants Ryuk to get back to him with the Death Note at some point, or Rim to get to him with the Death Note at some point, is Light giving up the Death Note completely would be almost like losing, wouldn't it? How can Light... the thing is, I don't think that Light wants to get rid of the Death Note completely forever, because then how can he become god of this new world? I don't think Light has given up on that objective. So I don't think Light's given up on the objective of becoming god of this new world and doing this stuff with the Death Note. So I don't think that's it, but I think he knows he has to get rid of it and forget about it for a time in order to get out of the situation and save Misa. I think that's what the point for him is. So he's like, I will be bold and sacrifice my pride for a moment to get out of this situation. So we'll come back to that. But yeah, you would think not a single criminal has died. So my point in this is that in times like this, Matsu says, I suppose it's harder for the parents than the subjects themselves, the suspects themselves. So yeah, as a parent, he is worried about Light. The thing about Light in all of this is he has no clue just how far his father is willing to go to prove his innocence, to the point of confining himself, because Light doesn't know his dad's in jail. Does not know at all. He thinks everything's still fine. But what frustrates me so much about Light is I do think that Light's actions are part of an elaborate plan to get him and Misa off scot-free from being Kira so that they can go back to being Kira. Or at least him. He's not going to let Mikasa become Kira again. No. He's going to send her on her merry way. But I feel like Light, this whole entire episode is an elaborate plan to get him off the hook of being Kira and to throw suspicion completely off of himself so that he can return to being Kira. But the problem with that all is he's literally killing his father doing this, and he does not realize it. And that's so frustrating. I'm like, it's so sad. It's almost definite that Light is Kira. And L's like, this is so weird. He's like, Mr. Yagami. And he's like, what, is it good news? Is it bad news? And the face that they're like, they're instantly dejected. Like, he's just so on edge. It's so sad. And he's like, no, try not to work yourself up too much. Like, you've literally had a heart attack. Like, let's not do that again. The outcome will remain the same. And like, seeing him on the screen, he's so tense. I feel so bad for Mr. Yagami. I feel the worst for him right now. He's like, we could put you somewhere more comfortable. And he's like, there's no place anywhere that would be relaxing in this situation. So sad. He's like, in the state I'm in now, this is the best place for me. Like, he looks like he's lost weight. Like, he looks like he's lost weight. He's physically ill. He says, no matter what the result, when I get out of here, I'll leave with my son. And he's like, I understand. And then it's been literally a week. Okay? So after a week, of course, there's the biblical symbolism that on the 7th day the Lord rested. There's that symbolism. So on the 7th day, Light gave up the Death Note and took a break. That's not lost on me. And I like that he's like, it's only been 1 week, but you look wore out. It's like, are you all right? And then he goes, and this is the part where he puts this plan in action. He's like, I've come this far. I think it's about time. And then he leans up to say, yeah, I know I probably look pretty bad in here, but this pride, I'll just have to get rid of it. So yeah, So Light, I'll put over here, Light, he abandons his pride to take a day of rest and has Ryuk rid the Death Note. Because yeah, that is, as he was falling off the cliff and thinking, L has me. No, I'm not giving up. The challenge is just starting. He's like, no, Light does something that's very out of character for him because he's so egotistical and proud of this power the Death Note's given him. He says, the only way for me to get out of this is to cast that aside for now, for the moment, and that will help me get out of the situation and get Misa out. So I'm going to have Ryuk get rid of the Death Note for a moment, and then I'll make my move, and then it's just going to get bonkers from here, right? So Ryuk's like, okay, and he looks at Light, God, Ryuk, and Light just looks so dead inside. He looks a lot like a character from another series that has recently aired in several seasons and parts and looks dead inside. kind of looks like that, right? And Ryuk, all he says is, got it. And oh my God, Light. I'm gonna take his dead inside faces. And all Ryuk says is later. And then it's over. And then it instantly, like, happens in an instant that he forgets everything. And his expression, and Elle's like, this is like the second time Elle's noticed something completely changed, and he's like, wait, what? And then he looks like he looks like his mother. He looks like a totally different person. He's like, what am I doing here? He forgot everything. He's like, but he remembers the name. So again, we get confirmation that the memories of the Death Note are gone and everything you did in the Death Note, but not everything that's happened. So he's like, Ryuzaki, why am I here? I know I agreed to be detained and chose to do this, but I now clearly just realize that doing this is meaningless. And Elle's like, he's like, because I'm not Kira. Get me out of here quickly. And Elle's like, he's like, this is the second time this happened. He's like, I can't do that. We promised no matter what you said, I wouldn't let you out until we decide whether or not you were Kira. He's like, there's something wrong with me then. Do you really think that Kira would be able to operate without being conscious of it? And then he just completely backtracks on everything he said, because all they told Elle from the start was a lie. It's not what Light really thought. It was a lie. And now that the memories of the Death Note are gone, Light is smart, and he's already reasoned through it that he's not Kira. And he's like, well, no, do you really think that people wouldn't be conscious of being Kira? That's not true. He's like, I don't remember committing Kira's crimes, so I'm not him. And Elle's like, I don't believe that. Kira's been acting without self-awareness all this time. But if you are him, everything matches up. He's like, as soon as you were detained, the murders by Kira stopped. He's like, all of our evidence has led us here. And he's like, Ryuzaki, hear me out. I'm not lying. I'm not Kira. I can only think I've been framed. This is so freaking genius. Is that now Light is still genius, but genuinely believes, but genuinely thinks he's not Kira. Now he's made it to the point where you could torture him all you want, but he no longer believes he's Kira and has memory of it, so it will do no good. It's like Misa. And he's like, what is wrong, Light Yagami? What you're saying doesn't make sense. But it feels like it's the truth, because it is the truth now, but Elle doesn't realize how that's possible. So, oh my God, it's insanity. He's like, we're wasting time. He's like, I can't let you out. And he's like, how did this happen? And they're like, what's going on? This isn't like Light, because Light has been acting this whole time. And now Light's been acting this whole time to cover up everything. And he's put on this other persona. And now the persona is no longer needed. It's gone. They're like, why is Light acting so different? He's taking back what he said earlier. It's not logical. We can't release him now that the murders have stopped. So yeah, it is defying their logic, and it's making this entire case a mucky mess, right? And so there's plausible doubt now, right? And the whole point is like, if there's plausible doubt, you can't convict him. Oh my God. And we're going to add the cherry on the cake that when we get the whole thing about the criminals being killed, can't we just decide that Light Yagami is Kira and the case is solved? But we can't, because now there's plausible doubt. So Matsuda and them want the case to be solved, but now there is doubt. And L doesn't know what to do with it. He's like, I don't know how to handle this situation now, because everything that we built up to is now gone. And now he does the lip thing, but it's not quite as pronounced. And it's like, So after 2 weeks, 2 weeks worth of criminals were murdered at once. I'm sure that my theory is that Light wrote all these criminals down. My theory at this point is that Light prepared, and that night before everything went down, or when Misa was kidnapped or something, Light prepared before he met with Rim and did all of that, before he met with Rim and Ryuk in the woods. I'm going to say before all this happened, Light wrote down 2 weeks worth of criminals to die, to divert suspicion. Because at one point, Light knew he was going to have Ryuk get rid of the death note to erase his memories, so he would no longer feel like he was Kira or remember anything he would have done as Kira. And so then, to add icing on the cake, to make him seem even less suspicious now as Kira, he was going to add all these criminals to make it seem like someone else was doing the killing. So it's like you use reverse psychology and turn yourself in. The closer keep your enemies close, your friends close, but your enemies closer. Like, turns himself in, plays this Uno reverse card, and then sets it up to where he actually could be doubted as Kira, despite it all. It's genius. And they're like, did you tell the chief? No, not yet. And so they tell, and Matsuda, I like that L doesn't stop Matsuda from telling the chief. He doesn't stop him. I think L knows that will make the chief in better spirits. And his hair and everything's down and messy. And he's like, what? He's like, Kira was just taking a break. He started punishing criminals again. And he's like, is that true, Matsuda? And he's like, then my son. He's like, I shouldn't be happy the murders have occurred, but suspicion of my son, no. And he said, he even doubts it then. He's like, knowing Ryuzaki, he's like, he's probably still going to be convicted. He won't be completely cleared. And they all look at L like, is he cleared? And he's like, well, he's in the gray. He's like, did you hear it, Chief? He's in the gray. He was pretty much guilty up until now, but now he's in the gray. Now we're back to where we started. Gray's a shade closer to being clear. And then he smacks his hand where he says, do not tell Light. And he says, Mr. Matsuda. And he's like, Matsuda? He's like, do not tell Light what we've just told his father. And he's like, why? And he says, Light. And he's like, what is it, Ryuzaki? It's been 2 weeks. There haven't been any new killings. Won't you just give up and confess that you're Kira? And he says, don't say stupid things. You're wrong. I can understand why you deduced from the investigation that I'm Kira, but it's a trap. So this is amazing because Light acknowledges. Light is smart like L. So he acknowledges. He says he knows why he's targeted, but he thinks it's a trap now. He's like, but I know in my heart and soul I'm not Kira. So he genuinely thinks it is a trap. He thinks it's a trap. He's like, I'm not Kira. Zoom in and look at my eyes. He's like, I'm not lying. And it's funny when he said, look at my eyes, I thought maybe it would be a tie to like the Shinigami eyes, but no, they're so normal. He looks more innocent now than he did at the start of this series. He's like, are these the eyes of someone who's lying? And Elle's like, no. And he asks me, so are you really sure you don't know who Kira is? And she's like, I'd like to know at this point. She's like, y'all won't let me go. But her restraints are less than they were before. And she says, Kira is a hero of justice who punished the burglars who killed my parents. And he's like, what? I love that Elle is all of us. He's like, what? He's like, I don't understand. And then, and Light is like, I don't believe I'm here either, him either. And he's like, I don't understand what is going on. So I wonder that here's the thing, Light, I wonder if one, putting the notebook, burying it in the woods, even if Ryuk gets rid of it, that means that it can't be traced back to his house. That means that if Light gets out and goes back to his house, he can't find it again. So there's that. I'm wondering if is Elle going to team up with Light now to find out who Kira really is when Kira is still Light? I'm like, is Light planning to work with, is he going to offer to work with Elle to find the real Kira and see who framed him? Is that what's gonna happen? Is he trying? And the thing of it is, the sad thing about all of this is now that Light doesn't have memories of the Death Note, him and Elle could have a chance to work together and actually be friends, real friends. But because of the situation, that's not going to happen. Because the Death Note is now gone from both Misa and Light's lives. In any other alternate universe, the three of them could be friends now and get along swimmingly. But because of the situation that Light has created, that's not going to happen. I feel like Elle is going to get backed into a corner and he's going to have to concede, possibly. Now the question is Elle going to fall off the tower? Is Elle going to concede that Light is not Kira and let him and Misa go? And they're going to get off scot-free. And then I think what's going to happen is when he can no longer concede, when he has to concede that Light is not Kira, he's going to let them go. And then Light is going to get Ryuk or Rim to bring him a Death Note and then be right back where we were. I don't know if that's the case. I can't imagine that Light is going to spend the next, because we still have, it's what, episode 16? We have 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 30. We have like 20 episodes left. And you're going to tell me that Light is going to be completely clueless that he was Kira for the next 20 episodes? Mm-mm. He's going to get that Death Note back at some point. And that's going to be his big, magnum opus where he thinks he's cornered Elle. And now Elle's going to be either suspect or he's going to get to a point where he can kill Elle. I don't know. There's so many possibilities, but I think that he's relinquished possession of the Death Note for now to get him and Misa cleared. To where him and Misa can no longer, there's too much doubt, too much plausible doubt, too many other things that are pointing to them not being Kira, that Elle will have no choice but to concede and let them go. And when they let them go, Misa's going to go on her merry way, Rim will be satisfied, and possibly, if Light can still see Rim, she'll give him a notebook back. Maybe. Possibly. and then he'll go back, and then he'll go after Elle again. And this time, when he goes after Elle, no one can suspect Light because he's already been cleared. Can't suspect him anymore. He's already been cleared of charges. So I just want Misa to be safe, because at this point she is kind of innocent. She has no clue what's happened and what she's done, and she feels like she's being tortured by a stalker. I just want her to be safe, and she's traumatized enough. I don't know how she'll get over it, but if she can, but I want her to be okay. And then Chief Yagami, I'm worried about him, because he's like been stressed to the max. And then poor Elle's like, I had the case solved. Only he didn't know what the killer's powers were. And now those powers have changed this whole thing around. I'm not going to wait a week to watch episode 17. So I'm sorry, those of you that want me to wait a week. It's not going to happen. I'm probably going to watch it tomorrow, if I'm honest. I'm probably going to watch it tomorrow. And I'll probably look at the comments today for episodes 16 and 15, and then I'm probably going to watch this episode tomorrow. So, I may not have a lot of comments to talk about, but oh my god. So yeah. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please no spoilers, but please feel free to comment down below otherwise, or tag spoilers, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Death Note. Bye.